Okay, look, if you're a Supra fan, quick warning here, you're possibly going to hate what I'm about to say.
These are becoming very popular tuner engines, and a lot of people are calling it the new 2J, which mechanically speaking I get it, but they're not perfect.
Chances are a Toyota Supra, even in completely standard form, is honestly all the performance car you are ever going to need, although it's not perfect. Okay, you know what a used Toyota Supra is? It's a conundrum. On one hand, it's wearing a Toyota badge, so you'd like to think that suggests superb build quality and bulletproof reliability. But on the other hand, the Supra is made alongside the BMW Z4 in Austria. And if history has taught us anything, it's that sometimes cars made in Europe can maybe exhibit some interesting reliability and maybe even some sketchy build quality. So, what's the story with the Supra? Should you rush out and buy one right now, or should you avoid these because what actually goes wrong with them? Well, starting with the exterior, it's pretty good news, honestly. Not much goes wrong. When we went trawling through the owners groups and forums, the biggest complaint about the exterior we could find was that these bloody mirrors, they create insane levels of buffeting inside the car. Basically what I mean is that if one of the windows or both windows are down, the minute you get over about 60 kilometers an hour, it sounds like the car's gonna shudder or buffet itself and your inner ears to pieces. Now, there is good news here because the aftermarket scene has a bunch of fixes for this. Jump on the owners groups and forums and check out what they recommend. Next up, and especially in hot climates like here in Australia, some owners have found that their Toyota badge on the front has gone a bit weird. It starts sort of fading or just deteriorating. Next up, a few owners, like of so many modern cars that we're featuring lately, have complained that the paint can be a little bit on the fragile side. It can mark and chip really easily, especially down the side of the car. A lot of owners highly recommend PPFing the whole car, or at the very least, fit some sort of mud flaps or something like that, especially if you're driving on dodgy roads. And then there are just bloody annoying things, like the fact that to open the boot, you either have to do it from inside the car or on the key fob. There's no button at the back to open the boot. I mean, come on, how hard could it be just to add a button there? Bloody hell. And then there's an annoying feature that just personally frustrates me to no end. It's the fact that the Supra features what I would call the automotive equivalent to singers using auto-tune, fake vents. Why? This is fake. The one that's normally here, this is an aftermarket bonnet, but that one's normally fake. This, fake. Ugh. Look, I understand that the vents kind of allude to the fact it's a performance car, but it is actually a performance car. If you're gonna have vents, at least make them functional, because that's just lazy design. And then there are the complaints from a few owners regarding just what Supras are available on the market. For example, here in Australia, we missed out on the heavily equipped and track-ready final edition, plus special models like the Plasma Orange 100 and the 35th anniversary editions. And internationally, a 4-cylinder Supra has been available. Like, what's the point of that? I mean, surely a Supra has to be a 6-cylinder to be really a Supra. However, a track edition, which is based on the standard GTS, just with a series of handling and chassis upgrades, has been confirmed by Toyota Australia for release sometime in 2025. But if you are in the market for one of these things, here are the choices that you need to know about. There are 2 trim specs, and both feature BMW's highly acclaimed turbocharged B58 3-litre inline 6, sending power rearwards via initially a ZF 8-speed auto. However, a 6-speed ZF manual joined the range for the 2023 year model. But not all Supras have been created equally. There was an update for 2021 featuring, but not limited to, more power and revised chassis calibrations. And then, as well as the manual transmission, 2023 models also included new lighter wheels for the GTS, refined suspension settings, updates in body control tech, and larger rear brakes, amongst a whole bunch of other goodies. And how much will you need to part with to get behind the wheel of a used Supra? Well, currently here on the Aussie market, it kicks off from around about $65,000. That's going to get you into an early high kilometre model that has an interesting history. At the other end of the spectrum, you're going to be looking at about $110,000 for something that's mint condition, near new, or beautifully modified like this. But the thing is, for this sort of cash, there's a whole host of other cars that you could buy that tick so many of the Supra's boxes. You've got the BMW M2, or maybe even a slightly older M4, the Nissan Z, the AMG C63S, Porsche Cayman S, maybe even a Ford Mustang or a Chevy Camaro. Or how about an older Jaguar F-Type or even Aston Martin V8 Vantage? And also, okay, look, if you're a Supra fan, quick warning here, you're possibly gonna hate what I'm about to say. Quite a few of those cars sort of grab me in certain ways that the Supra doesn't. And that's when it comes to the looks. Hey, calm down, don't go smashing your keyboard, abusing me just yet. Obviously, it's a gorgeous car, okay? And aside from the fake vents and a few other things that we'll cover in a second, it does the whole long bonnet, swoopy sports car performance thing incredibly well. But for me, the Supra, from a design perspective, it's a bit like Megan Fox and Zac Efron. I get it, to many they are just beautiful things to look at. But for me, yeah. Although, in saying that, when modified just like this, okay, then the juices certainly start flowing. But I have a request here. If you are going to modify a Supra, please, for the love of God, do like the owners of this car have done and just use the highest quality components and make sure they've been done properly. Otherwise, it can completely ruin them. But they can look as amazing as this. Now, our hot tip here when it comes to modifying not just a Supra, but any car, if you need quality aftermarket parts, check out our mates at Automotive Superstore. No matter if it's aftermarket wheels, brakes, suspension parts, engine parts, even things like dash cams, speakers, which we'll get to inside in a second. Automotive Superstore carry over 400,000 parts from over 500 different suppliers. Plus, to make working out what parts are going to fit your car perfectly, all you've got to do is type in your rego into their website and it will show all the parts that will suit perfectly. And they all come with a fitment guarantee. Check them out by hitting the link below. You're going to love them as much as we do. Now, as we just alluded to, if you're buying one of these, you might need to budget for some aftermarket speakers because according to the owners, even in the GTS models that have the premium 12-speaker JBL sound system, it can sound pretty bloody underwhelming, apparently. Now, a few owners mentioned to us that they think it actually might be the infotainment system holding back some signal to the speakers, but then in saying that, those that have replaced these speakers with better items have reported that the difference in sound quality can be night and day. Also, on the GT, that just has the standard 10-speaker sound system, one owner claimed that the sound quality from that thing was pretty much the same as when you were using a Walkman and you were trying to share your headphones with a friend. It really is that bad. Oh, actually, for our Gen Z audience, okay, a Walkman's like it's a portable music device that ran a thing called a cassette. Cassettes are shit, they're terrible. You think they're ironically cool? They're not. But then the headphones, they never sat on your head correctly and they just sound bloody horrible and they hurt. Look, anyway, while we're discussing the infotainment system, finally a Toyota that has a really good infotainment system. As long as you're an Apple CarPlay user, because these things as standard don't support Android Auto. You can retrofit Android Auto with a few aftermarket upgrades, but the reason that this system is so bloody good is because it has nothing to do with Toyota. It's BMW's iDrive system, and it is easily my favorite infotainment system of any car. Honestly, it's just so intuitive to use. I love the fact that there are actual buttons for all the important functions. These buttons are customizable and they're touch sensitive. Also, there's buttons for the air conditioning HVAC system. Although there's no sync button. Why is there no sync button there? But with the infotainment system, you can go delving into whatever menus you want. Some people have complained that this iDrive setup, it's an older generation of actual interface. It's actually one of my favorite generations. In saying that, some other owners have complained that they feel that maybe some of the iDrive functions have been held back because it's a Toyota, but that shouldn't be a deal breaker on the car. Okay, look, it is annoying that there's no 360 camera on a car asking this much, and yeah, it is missing a few other features here and there, but as far as accoutrement goes, the Supra is pretty well equipped. However, some of the safety systems, there are some complaints surrounding these, but we'll elaborate on that when we go and drive it. Also, we have started to see a few complaints pop up about random electronic gremlins. Not common at all, very, very rare, but they're starting to get a little bit more regular, you might say. We're talking about things like the wireless charging pad either not charging your phone or charging it so much it's almost like the charging pad is trying to ignite it on fire. A few reports of air conditioning issues, the dusk sensing headlights not sensing dusk, and the rain sensing wipers not sensing rain. Look, best bet if you are in the market for one of these, just try every single button, every single function, check that it works. Chances are it will, but just check. But here's a problem. If things don't work, a few owners have run into a drama where they've taken their Toyota Supra back to the dealership to get a certain part replaced or fixed, but Toyota don't carry the part because it's a BMW part. But then when they've tried to go to BMW to get the BMW part, well, they don't carry it either because this is a Toyota Supra. Plus, if the car is out of warranty and you need to pay for said replacement part, they are BMW parts. They are going to ask quite the premium. And even when it comes to just simple consumables like the wiper blades, like so many other manufacturers, the OEM replacement price can be absolutely ridiculous. Look, the best bet here is to do yourself a favor and get yourself a set of Wipertech wiper blades by hitting the link below. That way you're going to get 15% off and free express shipping, and you're going to avoid all of these hassles with the other wiper blades. However, if you'd like a set of Wipertech wiper blades for free, all you've got to do is do what the owners of this car have done and lend us your car to feature. And if we feature it, yeah, we're going to give you a set for free as a thank you present. If you'd like to volunteer your car, just shoot me an email via the link down there or message us on the socials. Now, also just on the owners of this car, we have to say a massive thank you to the guys at Better Tiles for lending us the Supra. Now, if you're in Sydney and you have any tile needs, hit the link below and check out Better Tiles because they are legends. Now, look, unfortunately, we have some more bad news when it comes to the interior of this car. Plenty of owners have complained that the overall fit and finish and just the materials used don't match the price tag of the car. And you know what? Yeah, I kind of get it. Like, it feels like the interior of about a $60,000 car, maybe $50,000 car, but $100,000? Certainly not. Don't get me wrong, it doesn't feel cheap and nasty. There is soft touch stuff here, but then there's like, you know, hard scratchy plastics down here and just certain things just, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. Also, it's not just the look and feel. Plenty of owners have complained that rattles and weird noises have started to develop in the interior. Look, I can't help but feel that if Toyota had employed those that make Lexus to make this car, you wouldn't have any of those rattle and squeak and weird noise issues. Also, according to a few, how do I put this with being politically correct? Vertically challenged owners, some of them have complained that the seats and the overall ergonomics just aren't that great for them. But for me, I think the Supra is pretty much a perfect fit. Now, in saying that, I am exactly the same height as someone that basically made the Supra nameplate such an icon, Detective Brian O'Connor. This is in my driving position, and honestly, it's superb. The steering wheel is in exactly the right place. I love these seats. They're so comfortable, but they're also so supportive. Little fun fact as well, these sections here are both padded, so when you are on track and getting hammered around everywhere, you're not going to ruin your knees. Although, if I was going to be really, really picky, I do wish the seat could go down about that much further. This is in its lowest position, and it's so close to perfect. I'm being a wanker, complaining about this, but it's still pretty bloody good. Also, I will agree with a few of the owners in that living with a Supra as a day-to-day car can be a bit of a challenge because getting in and out of it does require, let's say, Stedford levels of gymnastic ability. And even in terms of practicality, yes, it's a sports car, but it's not very practical up front. You do have your wireless charging pad for your phone here, which has its own little kind of, I'm going to call it a little roll cage so it doesn't go flying about when you're on track days. Not that you should ever have loose items in your car on a track day. Glove box, rubbish size. It is felt lined so things won't roll around in there, but nothing's going to roll around because there's no room. Door bins, no point in them. There's no space there. This section here just collects dust. Also, bloody gloss black plastic. Plenty of owners have complained that this starts to scratch up. The cup holders are a decent size, I suppose, and you can maybe put your phone in the little gap in between, kind of. But then, like, your cup holders are where your elbow goes. There's a little storage pocket here. That's about it. Nothing under the seats. No sunglasses holder. Yeah, the boot is just here. We'll get to that in a second, but I feel like it's just not the best use of space. And then in the boot, okay, there's actually a surprising amount of space back here, quite practical, but there are some issues. The opening aperture is a bit small, so getting big objects in and out is a bit of a pain in the ass. Even a bigger pain in the ass is the parcel shelf here. This thing is near impossible to actually get out. We've been trying to get it out so we can show you, but you've got to be like an expert in origami to get the thing out. But let's be honest, you're not buying a Supra for its levels of practicality, you're buying it for the driving experience. So what are these things like to drive? We're going to tell you in a sec. But first of all, you and I might have a bit of an issue we need to talk about. And by you, I mean the 75% of you that watch our videos but haven't given that subscribe button a little bit of a tickle. Honestly, subscribing to us helps us make more content for you. So in a weird kind of way, you subscribing to us is doing you a favor. But if subscribing isn't enough, why not consider joining our membership program by hitting the link down there for more quirks and features. Also, if you are seriously in the market to buy a Supra, you need to go and check out our free Supra cheat sheet. It lists all of the common problems and so much more. Please, if you're buying one, go read it. But finally, driving one of these, what is driving a used Supra like? Well, chances are a Toyota Supra, even in completely standard form, is honestly all the performance car you are ever going to need. Although it's not perfect. First of all, like so many modern cars, loads of owners have complained about just the incessant beeps and bongs and alerts that come from the safety systems. They claim that the calibrations are actually so sensitive that it almost feels like the car's dangerous. Now, obviously you can delve into the menus and turn all that sort of stuff off if you want, but it's annoying the calibrations aren't right from the factory. Now, remember before when we were talking about the design of the car and how that might have an impact negatively on some of the driving? Well, it's because of the vision out and the blind spots. Now look, I'm sure you'll get used to where the extremities of the car are, but plenty of owners have complained that they've scrubbed the front bar on a gutter. Even for me now, driving this thing, I don't really know where the front of the car ever is. Okay, and then you have these blind spots. Bloody hell, they're possibly the worst I've ever encountered. Luckily in Sydney traffic, people are generally pretty courteous, so when you try to change lanes, they just let you in. You don't really need to check your blind spot. But in other areas where people consider changing lanes to be like a home invasion and they'll defend their bit of road real estate to the death, I would hate to drive this in other areas because it's just honestly a nightmare. Again, it makes the car a bit scary to drive. But look, aside from those complaints and maybe a few rattles here and there that are, I suppose, to be expected, it is all positives for the Supra driving experience. These things are just epic. Remember, we're talking about 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 3.9 seconds. You know another car that did 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds? A Porsche Carrera GT. No one ever complained that that thing just simply wasn't fast enough. Plus, you gotta remember, this thing will probably match or even maybe outdo a Carrera GT in plenty of areas of performance. So it is plenty fast enough, even in just completely standard form. More importantly than that though, this car does feel genuinely special, like supercar levels of special, but at any speed. There's always a bit of a theatre and some kind of drama going on. It's really good. That's a sign of a very, very talented car. And then with this particular example, I tell you what, this thing has been enhanced perfectly. It's like having a really great taco, but with a serious dollop of hot sauce. It's just everything that's great about a Supra, just spicier. It's just a real shame that this weather and Sydney traffic and road rules don't let us really stretch its legs. Bloody annoying. But look, I have an issue with the Supra, even when it's modified to near perfection like this one. And weirdly, it's actually a compliment and a complaint at the same time. The problem I have with it is that it feels like you're driving a really, really great BMW and not a Toyota. See, a Supra for me should feel intrinsically Japanese. Like you drive an R35 GTR or even one of the Toyota GR BRZ 86 GR twins, right? They feel Japanese. This doesn't. Look, I know I sound like a complete wanker complaining about something like this, and okay, maybe it takes a job like this where you're driving dozens and dozens of different cars all the time to even recognize the difference. Most people will never be able to tell this, but I wish it had more of a signature, like a Supra feel, rather than just feeling, again, like a bloody great BMW. I mean, everything you touch in here, the steering weight, the way the pedals feel, even the way the indicators feel and sound, it all just exudes BMW. And then the other big concern with it being so much like a BMW is, well, what are the mechanical concerns? Because, reliability might be an issue. I can't answer that question because I'm not a qualified mechanic, but Jim is.
In standard form, these engines, internally, they are very reliable. And they are actually capable of making huge horsepower as well. The problem here is not so much the engine internally, it's everything plastic that's bolted onto the outside of it. I'll start with a PCV system, that's just the engine breather system. A lot of cars have PCV complications, pretty common on these. The diaphragm splits and they suck air and they run terribly. Good news here is you don't have to buy the whole valve cover, you can actually replace the diaphragm if you're prepared to sort of fettle the cap a little bit. It can be done and much cheaper than doing the whole valve cover. The oil filter housing on these is a very common problem. It houses oil ports and coolant passageways, and they're all right next to each other. If it should leak internally and you get oil in the cooling system, yeah, you can clean that out, that's fine. But if you get coolant in the oil and it goes undetected, it actually can cause a catastrophic engine failure. So it's definitely something to look out for. You can expect one of those to fail anywhere from 60,000 kilometres onwards. So keep an eye on it. And speaking of the oil filter housing, if you're doing a service on one of these, just take a bit of care with the oil filter when you're taking the old one out. Sometimes it can break off, seen that a few times. I've also heard of instances where people have changed the filter and not realised that the bottom part has broken off, and they've tried to jam the new filter in on top of it and caused all sorts of dramas. Look, typically if it breaks and falls apart, you can just pick it out. It's just something to keep an eye on, and just don't fall into the trap of trying to put the new filter in. The entire cooling system on these engines is pretty much made of plastic, and as they age and they go through all the heat cycles, it all becomes very, very fragile. They have a device called a heat management module, which is on the side of the engine. It's basically like an unnecessarily complicated thermostat. There's a lot of moving parts in there. There's some rotary valves, and there's servo actuators and a whole bunch of O-rings. There's a lot of moving parts, and they often fail. So you can get overheating issues. You can have issues where it's running cold. The good news here is typically when that has a problem, we'll nearly always log a fault code and tell you there's something going on. And with those, I've seen those fail from 100,000 Ks upwards, so something to keep an eye on. Other plastic parts in the cooling system, there's bypass hoses, there's expansion tanks. Look, all of those, as they age and heat cycle, very brittle. The high pressure fuel pump on these, not hugely common, can be an issue. Again, sometimes the car just stops. Other times you'll have some air fuel related fault codes. Relatively easy to change as well, but somewhat common. Not as much of an issue on the old N54 and N55 engines, but yeah, it's something you might come across. Typical for BMW, sorry, but it's true. Oil leaks form from valve cover and that oil filter housing as well, as I mentioned, and the sump gasket too. Valve cover mainly, that's probably the worst one. The turbos on these things, they are actually pretty good. You can have some oil starvation issues and a few wastegate complications as well. Not terribly common though. And charge pipes as well. In standard form, occasionally have some charge pipe leaks or boost leaks. That's more of an issue when the engine's been modified, and I'll get to that in a minute. Transmissions in these, the auto is the ZF 8HP. That is very common across a lot of rear-wheel drive and four-wheel drive platforms. Very reliable, parts are easy to get, and if you service it, you're actually not likely to have any issues with it. Manuals, it's a pretty similar story actually, although the clutch and flywheel can be a problem. Some people say that's operator abuse, but yeah, that seems to be the weak point there. The rest of the car, steering and suspension and driveline, all pretty good, although occasionally you might have some issues with the diff mounting bushes. They can wear a bit prematurely. All of it's relatively normal in terms of wear and tear, but like anything, if you lean on it too hard, all of that stuff will wear prematurely. Which brings us to modifications and tuning specifically. Look, these things, like I said, they are reliable and a very popular tuning platform too. Now, sometimes if you lean on it too hard and ask too much of it, they will break, they will wear out. My tip here is tune them within your budget and treat it with some mechanical respect, and it will look after you. And if you're looking to buy one that's been modified, we say this all the time, try to make sure that those mods have been done by a reputable workshop, and make sure the gear that's bolted to the engine is good quality stuff too. You don't want to buy somebody else's underfunded passion project. It will be a nightmare.
But the thing is, the question still remains, should you buy one? Maybe. If we're talking about a completely stock later model example with a faultless service history that passes a pre-purchase inspection with flying colours and has ideally been owned by a mature age enthusiast, absolutely buy one, because the right Supra, it can be an outstanding car. However, if we're talking about a Supra that has even the slightest sketch to its history, no, do not buy one. There are plenty of these on the used market, just wait until the right one comes along. And then when it comes to modified examples like this, okay, look, yes, the B58 can provide reliable, tuned extra horsepower, but as we've all seen countless times, When you tune an engine, things can go very, very bad very, very quickly. And then combine this with some dickhead previous owner, or maybe even owners that have failed to exhibit even the smallest amount of mechanical sympathy, and you're honestly just asking for trouble. Basically, unless you know categorically that the mods and tuning are the absolute best they possibly can be, and you have absolutely no doubt that the previous owner or owners have driven the thing with care and they have genuine talent behind the wheel, we just don't think it's worth the risk. Obviously, unless you're happy to throw money at the thing for the rest of time. But the thing is, if you're in the financial position to handle and justify that, why not just buy one of these instead? But if you own a Supra already, can we ask you a favour? Can you let us know in the comments what your ownership experience has been like? Because that'll just help any prospective buyers do even more research. Talking zero, these, here are the choices that you can go and check out our free Supra cheat sheet.